To truly understand the depth and complexity of this issue, we must zoom in, past the sensational headlines, beyond the abstract statistics, into the lived reality of a single place, a specific community. Let's examine how this ancient hatred manifests in Italy, a country steeped in history and culture, a country with its own unique and troubling story, a narrative shaped by colonialism, immigration, and deeply ingrained social biases. Only by looking closely, by examining the specific context, can we hope to understand the true scale and begin to formulate effective solutions to this pervasive global problem. Italy conjures images of art, history, and la dolce vita, but for many people of color, the dream can quickly sour. Reports and headlines force us to ask, is Italy one of Europe's most racist countries? Despite its reputation for warmth, evidence of deep prejudice is overwhelming. Black football players face relentless abuse, anti-immigrant parties gain traction. A 2023 EU report found Italy had some of the highest rates of racial harassment and discrimination. This isn't just a few bad apples, it's a systemic issue often excused as ignorance or tradition. Italy's story is a powerful case study in how history, anxiety, and identity collide to create a challenging environment for minorities. To understand today's racism, we must look at Italy's past and how it shapes who gets to be called Italian. Italy's colonial past is often forgotten, a chapter relegated to the dusty corners of history books. It's a past that many Italians themselves are unaware of or choose not to dwell upon, but its impact lingers, casting a long shadow over contemporary Italian society and influencing attitudes towards race and immigration even today. The echoes of colonialism can be heard in subtle ways, shaping perceptions and reinforcing biases. In the late 1800s and early 1900s, Italy embarked on a mission to colonize parts of Africa, a scramble for territory fueled by imperial ambitions and a belief in European superiority. Eritrea, becoming Italy's first African colony. Somalia, along the Horn of Africa, also fell under Italian control. Libya, in North Africa, was seized after a bloody conflict. And Ethiopia suffered a brutal invasion and occupation under Mussolini's fascist regime. This expansion was achieved using brutal force and racist ideology, with the indigenous populations subjected to violence, exploitation, and oppression. Propaganda depicted Africans as inferior, as savage and uncivilized, justifying colonial rule and exploitation. This racist message was taught in schools and spread at home, shaping the minds of generations of Italians. Under Mussolini, racism became law, an official policy of the state. The infamous 1938 racial laws targeted Jews and Africans, stripping them of their rights and freedoms. These laws enforced segregation in schools, workplaces, and public spaces. They went so far as to criminalizing relationships between Italians and those deemed non-white. This was state-sanctioned racism, a deliberate and systematic effort to create a racially pure nation. It's not a historical footnote, but a central part of Italy's 20th century history. Unlike Germany, which underwent a process of denazification and confronted its Nazi past, Italy never fully reckoned with its fascist and colonial crimes, leaving a legacy of denial and unresolved issues. Statues of colonial leaders still stand in public squares, monuments to a past that many would prefer to forget. The colonial past is largely unexamined in schools and public discourse, contributing to a collective amnesia. Old stereotypes resurface in modern rhetoric, often used to target immigrants and minorities. This makes it particularly hard for children of immigrants who are often born and raised in Italy to be seen as truly Italian, despite their deep connection to the country. The persistent idea of a pure Italian identity, rooted in a romanticized and often inaccurate vision of the past, continues to keep many as outsiders, denying them full inclusion in Italian society. Today's racism echoes colonial attitudes, reflecting the deep-seated prejudices that were once enshrined in law. These attitudes were never confronted and dismantled, allowing them to fester and resurface in new forms. Without acknowledging this history and critically examining its legacy, prejudice remains deeply rooted in society, poisoning social relations and hindering progress towards equality. Racist insults aren't just words hurled in anger, they carry the weight of history. They're echoes of a dehumanizing ideology that justified colonial violence and oppression. Until Italy faces its past with honesty and courage, acknowledging the suffering caused by its colonial actions, the poison of racism will continue to linger in its present, hindering its ability to build a truly inclusive and just society. Nowhere is Italy's racism more visible, more blatant, and more deeply entrenched than in its football stadiums. It's a stain on the beautiful game, a shadow that darkens every match. Serie A is famous for passion and skill, a league celebrated worldwide for its tactical brilliance and the artistry of its players. But it's also infamous for the horrifying abuse of black players, a constant barrage of hate that should have no place in the sport. Monkey chants, thrown bananas, symbols of dehumanization and contempt, and racist banners displaying messages of pure hatred are recurring nightmares, not isolated incidents. They are a persistent feature of Italian football culture. Mario Balotelli, born in Italy to Ghanaian parents, faced relentless abuse, a constant stream of insults and jeers that followed him throughout his career. His extraordinary talent was constantly overshadowed by his skin color, a tragic waste of potential. Recent stars like Romelu Lukaku, a powerhouse striker admired around the world, and Fikayo Tomori, a rock-solid defender with immense skill, continue to endure similar hatred, facing the same vile abuse that has plagued Italian football for far too long. The response from authorities, the very people who should be leading the charge against racism, is often weak or dismissive, a shrug of the shoulders when decisive action is desperately needed. Punishments are minimal, a slap on the wrist that does little to deter future offenses. Some even go so far as to blame the victims, adding insult to injury with their callous indifference. They claim the players provoked the crowd, excusing the inexcusable with flimsy justifications. This culture of denial, this refusal to acknowledge the severity of the problem, sends a clear message, a message of impunity and indifference. Racism isn't taken seriously, and those who perpetrate it will likely face no real consequences. The stadium is a microcosm of society, a concentrated reflection of the prejudices that exist within the broader culture. It amplifies hidden prejudices, bringing them to the surface in a way that is both shocking and revealing. If celebrated athletes, individuals admired and revered for their skills, aren't protected from this abuse, what hope is there for ordinary people, for those who don't have the platform or the visibility to fight back? The failure to address football's racism, to confront it with the seriousness it deserves, reflects a broader unwillingness within Italian society, a reluctance to truly grapple with its own history and biases. It's a failure to confront prejudice head-on, to acknowledge the deep-seated problems that continue to fester. It's a national issue, a problem that affects every corner of the country, played out on a global stage where the world is watching and judging. Beyond stadiums, racism in Italy is quieter but just as corrosive. Black people and other minorities face daily discrimination, being singled out for document checks, followed in stores, or denied housing. Investigations reveal landlords openly refusing to rent to Africans and other foreigners. In the workplace, Afro-Italians and immigrants are often stuck in low-wage jobs, regardless of qualifications. A foreign-sounding name on a CV means fewer callbacks, even with identical credentials. These daily slights reinforce segregation and steal human potential. The constant vigilance and emotional toll create a sense of isolation and unbelonging. For many, true belonging in Italy remains out of reach, blocked by invisible walls of prejudice. For black tourists, Italy's beauty can be shadowed by racism. Many describe being stared at, treated as curiosities, or met with silence in shops. In smaller towns, the sense of being other is even stronger. Some are mistaken for sex workers or street vendors, or harassed by police, stereotypes rooted in deep prejudice. These experiences turn a dream vacation into a lesson in managing public bias. Black travelers adapt, changing how they dress, act, and prepare for stares. The emotional labor is real, framing even the most beautiful sights with a sense of exclusion. The question becomes not just what will I see, but how will I be seen? Political leaders don't just reflect public opinion, they shape it. In Italy, the rise of far-right politics has fueled anti-immigrant rhetoric, normalizing prejudice. Leaders like Matteo Salvini built careers on fear, framing immigrants as threats to security and culture. This language trickles down, emboldening bigotry and shifting what's considered acceptable. The real Italian is pitted against the other, immigrants, refugees, people of color. Scapegoating distracts from deeper issues, turning vulnerable people into political props. Anti-immigrant sentiment shapes policy and media, making integration harder and fueling division. The politics of otherness corrodes the nation's soul, making it less just and less compassionate. Despite the challenges, a new generation of Afro-Italians and second-generation citizens is demanding change. Born and raised in Italy, they fight for recognition and the right to belong. Citizenship laws based on ancestry leave many in limbo, treated as foreigners in their own country. Activists push for reform, using art, music, and social media to tell their stories and challenge stereotypes. They build communities, educate the public, and demand a more inclusive definition of Italian identity. Their energy and creativity offer hope for a more multicultural future. They are the faces of a new Italy, refusing to be invisible. We've examined Italy's struggles with racism, but this isn't just an Italian problem. The issues, scapegoating, citizenship battles, denial of systemic racism, exist everywhere. By looking closely at Italy, we gain perspective on our own societies. Real change is slow and personal, starting with uncomfortable conversations and honest self-reflection. It means listening, educating ourselves, and challenging our own biases. The fight against racism is a fight for shared humanity and dignity. The world is shrinking. We can build walls or longer tables. The choice is ours, made in everyday interactions. The conversation is hard, but it's the only way forward.